Welcome to the Global Happiness Crusade series of podcasts, Happiness in Their World. Today's guest is someone whose words have touched thousands and whose life story speaks of resilience, reinvention and the quiet power of kindness. Kit De Waal, or Mandy as I knew her back at Waverley Grammar School in the 1970s, grew up in a world of opposites: Irish and Caribbean heritage, Jehovah's Witness teaching, and a home where laughter often masked hardship. From those early days in Birmingham to her extraordinary rise as an award-winning author, memoirist, and now chair of the 2025 Women's Prize for Fiction, Kit has never stopped exploring what it means to love, to lose, and to be seen. Her memoir, Without Warning and Only Sometimes, and her latest novel, The Best of Everything, aren't just stories. They're windows into unseen lives, ordinary heroes, and the beautiful, broken ways we try to heal. Kit's voice is authentic, unapologetic, and often hilarious. And today I'm honoured to sit down with someone who knew me long before the Global Happiness Crusade existed. We may not have been in the same class, but it turns out we've been on parallel journeys toward meaning, justice and joy. This conversation is one I've looked forward to for a long time, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I know I will. Welcome, Kit De Waal.
Thank you very much for a lovely introduction.
Okay, Kit, before we dive into the big ideas, how are you spending your days these days?
Well, I'm still reading for the Women's Prize, although I'm coming to the end of that now. When I'm not reading, I'm writing. I've got a novel that's due to go to my publisher on the 30th of September, and I'm only halfway through it, so that's a lot of work. I do literary festivals and so forth, spend time with my kids, try and get a holiday in every now and again. And I do the odd activist thing as well.
Yeah. You've lived such an extraordinary life. When you reflect back, what stands out as the happiest period of your journey so far, personally and professionally?
Personally would be my children. So I adopted two children, Bethany in 1997 and Luke in the year 2001. And undoubtedly, I mean, head and shoulders way above anything I've ever done is the joy of meeting my children and having the privilege to be their parent. That is my greatest achievement, I think. Professionally, it would be the miracle of me ever getting published. I never thought I'd get published. I had some knockbacks, and I still am very, very surprised that I've been a successful author. It's, it's joy, it's luck, it's hard work, it's the collision of the two. And I suppose that I get to do every day what I love. I mean, that's incredible.
You can't ask for more than that, can you, really?
No.
Yeah. So many people doing work that they don't really want to be doing,
Yes.
I've always maintained that if you can be doing something that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
That's
You've arrived.
I mean,
the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes,
that triangle. And so many people never get to the top of the pyramid. They never get to the self-actualization where I'm the best that I can be. I feel I'm at the top of the pyramid. And for many, many people in this world, it's something they dream of. They can't do. They haven't got the money. They haven't got the time. They haven't got the opportunity. They might live in a war-torn country. They might live in poverty. And they just think about it. They don't get the chance to live it. And I am living it. That's a privilege and a miracle.
And deserved, from what I've heard. From everything you've just said there, it echoes what the Global Happiness Crusade is all about. It's all about trying to help people move up that Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
Some way. You know, we might not get them to self-actualisation, but if we can get them moved up the levels, then
Absolutely.
you know, we're getting there.
You've described your childhood as difficult, weird, but also joyous. How did laughter help you survive and thrive in such a unique environment?
I mean, my childhood was just, utterly bizarre. It was unpredictable. From one half day to the next, you never knew what was going to happen to you. My parents were both immigrants, both very uneducated. They didn't get on. They were opposites in every single way imaginable. And by some genetic fluke, they managed to have 5 very intelligent children. And the only way we survived our bizarre childhood was laughing at them, not with them, and making each other laugh, helping each other survive. We used to go to these Jehovah's Witnesses meetings, which were grim beyond measure. And we used to laugh at some of the shite they taught us, basically. We'd be thinking, Adam and Eve, apple and a serpent. Don't believe that. So we would laugh about it. Definitely you're laughing through your tears sometimes. There's absolutely truth in that statement. But it's not all laughing through tears. Some of it is just laughing. It just is a funny situation. And my brothers and sisters were and still are the people that make me laugh the most. I mean, my brother rings me more or less every day. And sometimes we can barely get through conversation without laughing. It's fantastic.
That's fabulous.
It's the medicine, isn't it? It's
absolutely.
The medicine of life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can't remember who it was that said it. It said, it might have been Charlie Chaplin that said, a day without laughter is a day wasted.
Totally. There's nothing better for me than, when you laugh and you can't breathe in.
Yeah.
So I can remember sitting in a car with my brother. This was maybe 10, 15 years ago. And I really believed I was going to die laughing because I couldn't stop and I couldn't breathe in. And I was saying, this is, people say you die of laughter. I thought, now I know how it happens. And I still couldn't stop. It's great.
Okay. Before writing became your world, you spent 15 years working in criminal and family law.
Yeah.
As a magistrate, a legal advisor, and even writing training materials for the judiciary.
Yeah.
I was serving as a uniformed CID officer in Birmingham in the 1980s. Riots, strikes, all of it. And I wonder, were our paths unknowingly crossing back then?
Yeah, I bet they were. I mean, I wasn't in the riots, obviously, but I knew of the riots. I knew we had many of our clients were caught up in the riots. And I used to go to Erdington Police Station, Queens Road Police Station, Steelhouse Lane, Steelhouse Lane, Thornhill Road. And I'd go down to the cells, Steelhouse Lane, before people went into court the next day. So I'm quite sure we would have probably been on the same case. Were you drug squad?
No, I was just a divisional detective based at Erdington. But before doing that, when I was in uniform, there was a prison officers strike in the early 80s. Because I was still a probationer, my inspector said to me, look, you're doing great on your probation. He said, will you do something for me? So I said, we need a volunteer to go and work at lockup.
Yeah.
And I had to go and work at Steelhouse Lane. And it was when all the prisoners were there and not being taken back to Windsor Green. So the cells were all full. And it was a strange experience, really strange. Everybody calling you boss. And I don't know what your music taste is, but my music taste has always been heavily influenced by the Caribbean side of things, reggae and all this. I got on really, really well with the Rastas that were there. Yeah. And we used to stand there singing Rasta, some of the old Rastafarian songs, the proper ones, like Police and Thieves and all this, and all this sort of stuff. I used to know all of those. And that was my, and then I got into Marvin Gaye and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, this is about you, not me.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what that chapter of your life did, the justice side? What did it teach you about human nature, justice, and perhaps what it didn't?
Overwhelmingly, what it taught me, working with people that were accused of crimes, and I've got to say, most of them were guilty of something, if not that thing. It taught me that good people do bad things, and very bad people do good things, and the enormous grey area that there is between good and bad, between right and wrong, between the motivations for right and wrong. I met some tough guys, hard criminals, serious criminals, doing many, many years inside, with some drug empire or sometimes, other things that they'd done wrong, who loved their mother, did good in the community, helped other people on the one hand, great fathers, kind on the one hand, on the other hand, doing violent crimes, and found some way to square that for themselves, found some way to make that make sense in their lives. And then I would meet some really good people, law abiding, who, for whatever reason, take a misstep, do something intentionally wrong, do something bad, that they have found a way to square, or it's just, a situation they've got themselves into. And neither one of those people, for me, are beyond redemption. I believe everybody, no, not everybody, I can think of some more criminals who are beyond redemption. But I'd say 99.9% of people are worthy of redemption, are capable of redemption, are worth something, should be treated humanely, should be, as far as possible, reintegrated into society, should have dignity and human worth. And I truly believe that. I'm talking about people that I met over many years, many murderers, rapists, people that had done very serious criminal enterprises. And yet I still believe that there's a scope always for, not for forgiveness and understanding, maybe not, never agreeing with what they've done, but giving people an opportunity to explain themselves, to be heard. And then, yeah, of course, they're going to have to go to prison or whatever. That doesn't mean that they're worth nothing. And I think the people that I met overwhelmingly deserve to be treated properly and to be understood.
That speaks loudly of your attitude towards love in general.
Yes.
I know you talk about love an awful lot, in your books and everything, and that comes across. Okay, many people know you today as an acclaimed author, but what version of yourself do you think your younger self would be most surprised and proud to see?
I was very shy when I was a child, very shy. I still am. I'm an introvert. No one believes I'm an introvert. I'm completely an introvert. I think I would be surprised that I can advocate, I can stand up in front of a room of 1,000 people. It wouldn't faze me in the slightest. I've done live TV many times and live radio. And I think that would surprise me because I do not like the limelight. I'm the second child of 5, and oh my God, second is so great. I don't know why people want to be first. Second is good. Someone else has got all the limelight, someone else has got all the pressure, and you're just there, and someone's in front of you. Paradise. And so for me,
I was 4th.
Yeah, for me, that is surprising. That would surprise the shy me, the person that never ever wanted to be out there and noticed. And I am out there and I am noticed, and I can do it.
Okay, you've spoken about finding your second wind in your 50s. What changed for you emotionally or mentally that made writing click at that moment?
I had all the jobs I'd ever had. Every single job I'd ever had been a job to me. I started work. I think my first job, I was 16, just left school, and I got my first job. And I was the sort of person that, come 5 o'clock, I'm out of here. You're not paying for me till after 5, so I'm going. All through my working life, I was like that. It's like, it was great and interesting, but I've actually got a life. When I discovered writing, I was like, oh my God, I would do this for nothing. I'd never done, there was a clear demarcation in my life between what you got paid for and that money fuels the rest of your life. The two don't cross over. All of a sudden, I'd found something, A, I would do for free. B, I couldn't stop thinking about. C, it was more than a job, it was a vocation. And as soon as I discovered writing, I thought, oh, so those people I used to work with that stayed after 5, they lived their work, and I'd never understood it. So it was finding out, and it was discovering that there was passion. I'd never been passionate about anything. Passionate about my private life, about going out, my friends, my family, but nothing to do with work. And now here was something I wouldn't care if I wasn't paid for it.
I think there's a strong link between passion and how it brings our talents to the surface.
Yes.
If you're passionate about something, you stay on the case long enough to actually make it interesting, either for you or for others.
Yes.
And obviously that's obviously the case with you, because your passion has turned into a very talented career. Yes.
And also you want to get better at it. When I first started writing, I was utterly crap. I mean, I was so bad at it. But I couldn't believe that there was such an enormous gap between the picture in my head that I wanted people to know and my writing. I was like, that's not it. Here's the picture and that's not it. So I've got to narrow the gap between what is on the page and what's in my head. And I knew that was the craft, just like being a tailor or a chef. There are ways to get better at your craft. You have to learn from the masters, you have to study, you have to fail. So I just thought, I'm going to do all of those things. And I did for years to get better.
Yeah. Failing, that's an interesting one, because it's something that's come up a lot recently in some of the social media stuff that I'm talking about. And what they're saying, what is being said, and I totally agree with this, because I've failed many, many times. You've got to keep failing, but you've got to fail faster. Yeah. You've got to learn faster. Yeah. And you've got to, it's almost like if you don't fail, you can't succeed without failing.
No.
You must fail, because it's the only way you learn.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it's fascinating. You've said grief is love with nowhere to go.
Yes.
You've just released your new book, The Best of Everything, which I can attest is excellent. Available to all good retailers. The fly sheet describes the book as a novel about love that can steal into our lives.
Yeah.
In spite of the best laid plans. Paulette's story shows us how powerful chosen love can be. Do you see storytelling itself as an act of love?
Yes, I do. If you think about what we do, those of us that have got children, that precious time when you've got your child on your lap and you're reading a book, or you're reading a story to your child at night, that kind of thing, children remember that for the rest of their lives, that they remember the stories, they remember the closeness, they remember that precious time. But also storytelling can describe love really well in a way that, the difference between saying I love you and showing someone that you love them is enormous. As we all know, anyone that's got to our age knows that I love you, it's bollocks words.
I remember when I started writing myself, one of the big things I learned from some other authors was show, don't tell.
Absolutely. And show, don't tell applies to, to any relationship we have. Someone that shows you that they love you is worth 10 times more than the bloke that says I love you and then pisses off. So storytelling is a way of describing deep emotions so that people get it. I mean, I got an email the other day from somebody who had read the book, And she said, I have only just got the opportunity now to type because I've been crying about the end of your book. And I was like, yes, because that's what you want.
Yeah.
And when someone feels the love through storytelling, it's so much more powerful than say, okay, there's a woman, she did this, she did this, she did the other. They're words.
Third party, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's written third party.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've got to be honest, that's what grabbed me about your books. You know, what I've read so far, it's so, I love the individual style that you write with. You don't, it's almost like you go, bleh! You don't care about what you're saying, you just say it. And I think that's brilliant because so many people are so careful with their words. It's almost like they've been pulled out of ChatGPT or pulled out of a dictionary. And, you know, reading, it's authenticity, isn't it? Yeah. It's the authentic you coming out on paper for people to either like or not like. Yeah, and they obviously like what you're doing. So, okay, so you write about overlooked people, ordinary, complicated, resilient. Do you think our society undervalues these quieter, more subtle stories?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I really do. So often, for example, you will go to Waterstones around October, November, and what you'll see is the flood of celebrity memoirs. Some people are 22 and they've written the memoirs because they've done something, went into the Big Brother house or whatever. Very often nothing remarkable. And then you have the amazing people who quietly go about their lives doing extraordinary things, extraordinary acts of kindness, or just the resilience that they have to get up every single morning, have a shower. You know, for some people, getting up in the morning and having a shower is a mammoth task, not only physically, but because of the pressures of life, because they're down, they're depressed, and yet they've managed to battle through their lives. And we don't think about those people because they're not on telly. They're not doing something extraordinary. They haven't climbed a mountain. They haven't cycled 2,000 miles. The everyday triumph over adversity, the everyday kindness of strangers, kindness to strangers, the everyday resilience and laughter and joy that people display in getting on with their lives. We absolutely don't celebrate it enough. And I'm not talking about the foster carers who are fantastic and they may have fostered 40 children and they get a medal. And that's absolutely great. But again, it's something extraordinary. I'm talking about the absolute, the single mom with 3 kids that's got no money, that gets them up, kisses them, dresses them for school. They're on time. They're doing their homework. They're taking £1 for school book day. I mean, year after year, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years of that with no recognition. I love those people and I wish there was more celebration of the ordinary. I mean, I don't believe anyone's ordinary, but the unsung, marginalised people, the ones around the corner of the room, not the ones in the centre.
Yeah. I tend to notice more women in those struggling roles, if you like. Women who are struggling to bring up a family, women who are struggling to bring up children with ADHD. Or I've got a friend who's got, one son with ADHD, autism, and the other son is a type 1 diabetic. And she's trying to live a life as well. Yeah. As well as bringing that family together. And I watch with admiration. And then I think to myself, I was so fortunate. You once said there's not enough kindness in the world, though you believe it exists all around us. What would help us see it more clearly?
I think partially the media are to blame with that. Bad news sells newspapers, bad news sells clicks. There is such an opportunity and responsibility for the media to just, for every 5 bad stories, can we have one good one? And please. Not a sickly sweet one, but just something to balance some of the bad news. I was thinking of balance. Yeah, and to also give us something to celebrate, give us something to hold on to, so that we don't go to bed at night thinking, oh my God, there's going to be World War III and everything's shit and no one cares about each other. People really do care about one another. There's so much good in the world. And okay, it may not sell newspapers and clicks and all the rest of it, but, you know, take some responsibility for what you peddle. Take some responsibility for what you amplify. And that goes for all of us. I mean, we all talk to one another every single day. Make an effort, all of us, to say, God, that was lovely. That was nice. That was kind. Thank you. Yeah, show appreciation. Think about including maybe somebody in your plans that you don't normally include. Stretch your friendship group or your family group out to other people, and be kind. Make an effort, and it sometimes is a massive effort.
You've summarised in what you just said something that really resonates with me. When you talked about the media, for example, bang on, that really has irritated me my whole life. The way that bad news sells more than good. Why don't they bring more balance to the, to what we see on TV? And, the nonsense soap operas that are on TV, it's all negativity, it's all drama. It's all, and what I fear is that there are some people out there that might be influenced by that negatively. And then there is social media. Social media, I believe, should be designed to include, whereas what it tends to do at the moment is separate.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. It focuses more on people that have done something wrong. I mean, some of the social media channels now just seem to focus entirely on that, on nastiness.
Yes, absolutely.
Rather than kindness.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds twee, but I believe, and corny, but I believe it can be the answer to major problems in our lives in this world.
Yeah, I agree.
If we have
totally.
more kindness and love. You've lived through vast social change. Do you think people today are more or less content than when we were growing up in Birmingham?
I think that's a very difficult question to answer. I think what's changed a lot if I think about my children, and my children are in sort of late 20s, early 30s, and expectation is different. So I can think about when I got married the first time. I've been married twice, and the first time I got married I was 25, and we were not broke, but we had no carpet and a second-hand terrible Draylon sofa and terrible curtains, but it was what we all had. So the expectation was, well, you might have that for 5 years, and then you saved up, and you got a different sofa, and you got a bigger telly and all the rest of it. My kids now, the expectation is that I'm going to have that, and that. And my children are not spoilt. They're very grateful. They're not wealthy. But the expectation is that we should have more and better and holidays and all the rest of it. And I completely agree that everybody should have enough and have happiness. But I think somewhere along the line, the seeds of discontent with the now have been planted. And discontent comes from expectation.
Yes.
So if you have the expectation that this is good, then you will more likely to be happy. If you have the expectation that, why haven't I got Kim Kardashian's eyelashes, then you're going to be miserable. And I think that has come along with social media, that we're exposed to celebrity lifestyles. We're exposed to those trainers, that sofa, that colour paint, and all of this. That mobile phone feeds discontent. So I think in my day, the expectation was that you would work very hard to have a more or less average lifestyle. That's, an average to me was posh. We were poor. To get to average was a massive step. I think now there is the expectation that you're exposed to wealth, privilege. You see everywhere. Children, young people see everywhere and are encouraged to want it.
Those expectations are really, really hard to manage, aren't they?
Very hard.
Children, because they're being bombarded from all directions.
They're
from
being
their friends.
sold to.
Yeah. Well, they're on the internet as well, as much as we are these days. And people are telling them, if they say you can't have this, question why.
Absolutely.
And you should have this.
You're worth that.
Yeah.
You're worth it. You've got to have the eyelashes, the Botox. Why aren't your eyebrows that shape? Have that hair, wear them trainers, have those clothes, get that makeup, have that handbag. Why haven't you got that handbag? All of that is fueling discontent. Because it's the way to sell things to people is to give them a problem to be solved.
Yeah.
If you haven't got a problem, why would you buy that thing? So you need to have a problem. I'm going to tell you you've got a problem. Here is the solution. It's $10.99. That's the whole point. That's selling in a nutshell. And so to feed to make the businesses grow, we have to feed the problems. We have to tell people they've got problems. It doesn't just work on young people either. It works on everybody.
All of us.
Everybody thinks, oh, if only, if I had that thing, I wouldn't have this problem. Well, you probably haven't got that problem in the first place.
What role do you think social media plays in the collective happiness? Does it help people feel seen, or has it disconnected us further?
I can remember speaking to someone whose job it was to, he ran a consultancy, and the consultancy was basically, I'm going to launch a new ice cream. Can you tell me who's likely to buy it? So he was a massive market researcher, and he'd work out that if you like that dog food and you buy that carpet, you're going to like this ice cream. He was fascinating, man. It was all about behaviour psychology. And I can remember meeting with him. This was probably 8 or 9 years ago. And I was slagging social media off and just going, why do we need it? It was really just the beginning of the explosion of social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook had been going a while then. And he said, well, I'm very glad you have found your tribe. And he said, what if you are a gay man living in the rural Midwest of America, and you also like moths and trains and Led Zeppelin? He said, and you're miles from anywhere, you're miles from your town. He said, social media is a lifeline for those people. People that have got niche lives, unexpected lives, loneliness, disability, things that are not accepted, they can find their tribe on social media. If you are, living amongst a community where you can find your tribe physically or otherwise, then perhaps you don't need social media so much. But social media can really help with people's isolation, with being seen, with being understood. So I wouldn't say it's universally bad at all. Then you have the other side of it. Social media manipulated by big tech, by big pharma, by big business to encourage us to want things, to encourage us to suspect our neighbours, to dislike our neighbours, to dislike difference, and all for the sake of exploiting our weaknesses. So it is absolutely a knife with two very sharp sides.
You're a huge advocate for working class writers and diverse stories. What would a society that truly prioritised well-being and creative inclusion look like to you?
Well, there'll be much more opportunity to have all stories told, not just the people that can afford to go to London, to go to literary events, to take a year off to do, say, a creative writing degree. It would include the stories of those people who've got 3 jobs and write in their spare time and didn't get a chance to write until they were 55 or whatever. It would include stories of refugees and asylum seekers and people really very often on the edges of society. But it would also find the commonality between those people that do get published, middle classes, white people, people who believe that they are native to the country and somehow different. And it would find the commonality between those people, the marginalised, and the people that are mainstream, so that there was less division, much, much less division. There's a really interesting project called the Human, can't remember, I'll find out the name for it. Anyway, it's where you have people of difference sitting in a room and you can go and sit with that asylum seeker, refugee, trans person, whatever, and talk to them and find out what they're like. And they do this in universities and just community centres all over the world. And it's an opportunity to go and hear firsthand about someone that maybe you don't know about or you don't like. And you just want to sit there and have a better understanding of that person. This is not to say that you're going to, if you're anti-trans and you sit with a trans person, you're maybe not going to change your mind at all about the rights or the wrongs, but you would hear them and you might see them as a human being. You might still, for whatever reason, think that's uncomfortable to me. I don't like that. But see the human person under the labels.
Yeah, there's a journey I like to talk about with that sort of thing, where your first experience is awareness, then that awareness develops into understanding, and then hopefully that understanding becomes acceptance.
Yes.
And if those three things are in place, then the fourth one is appreciation.
Yeah.
So you can learn to appreciate what that person's experience is that you were previously ignorant of.
Yeah.
There's an old adage that says a mind that's changed against its will remains of the same opinion still.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
If you think that way because of the experiences that you've had, there is no amount of saturation that is going to change your mind. But it can't do us any harm as the human race to have more exposure to that.
No.
Do you believe businesses should measure success by how happy and valued their people feel, not just in profit?
Oh, absolutely. I do believe that human dignity at work is really, really important. And people that feel valued and understood and appreciated are likely to be more productive. They're likely to want to go into work more often. They're likely to take themselves to work when maybe they might think, oh, I don't feel well, I'm going to have a day off. So not only in economic terms does it make sense for a workforce to feel appreciated and have a high level of well-being, on a humanitarian level, of course it makes sense. And it makes sense for the employer themselves to know that they are doing good. And I think very often we look at the effects of well-being at work as the employees. It's all about the employees making sure they feel good at work. Well, actually, that's a two-way street. The employers have the satisfaction of knowing that they are doing good, of themselves feeling that they have contributed to not just happiness at work, but the employee is going to take that home. It's going to affect that person's family, children, neighbours, bus driver, the transport that they take, you know, how grumpy they are when they sit at the traffic lights or cut somebody up or someone cuts them up. It has a massive effect on society, and it has an effect on the employer themselves personally, knowing that they are contributing to the greater good as well as getting economic benefits.
Should education prioritise creativity, emotional literacy and well-being alongside academic results?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. My youngest son had severe dyslexia, and he went to a school where, he was going to be bottom in geography. He was going to be bottom in history. He was going to be bottom in maths. Going to be bottom in English. However, they had a brilliant program of sports, creativity, making a car, where my son was going to triumph. He was going to be really good at sports, was really good at sports. He would be messing around, making people laugh in building a car. He would be doing something with crafts where you weren't measured on, two and two make four, or can you spell character? He wasn't measured on those things. He was measured on the things he was good at. So often, school measures children on things they are not good at. So if that school had only measured Luke, my son, on academic performance, he would have had the message every single day in every single lesson, you are not good enough. He had that, as it happens, in half of the lessons, but in the other half, you are great. And now there is another child who might feel that they're not good enough, and the playing field is leveled. If we prioritise creativity, we are not just going to say to the academic child, and let's face it, our education system is built around academia. It is not built around who's the kind child, who's the child that turns up every day to be bottom of the class sometimes or towards the bottom, who's the child that's made massive, massive strides to get to 6 out of 10 because they started at 3 out of 10. None of that is prioritised in this education system. So if we had an education system that valued things that go beyond chemistry, maths and English, and it goes along what people laughingly call soft skills, what I call human behaviour and kindness, then we would have a society where everyone felt they were good at something. Too many children leave school feeling a failure. And you used to work in criminal law, I used to work, and I used to speak to some young men in prisons, and all through their life they've been told they were stupid.
Yeah.
And translation, bad, because they start messing around. Because I'm not good, I'm going to be the joker. Because I'm not good, I'm going to be the bad boy. And giving some of those children the message that you're not good at that, but you're really good at that. Not good at everything. No one's good at everything, but just giving them something to bolster their self-esteem so that they leave school thinking, I was never good at maths, but I was really good at cricket. I was never good at French, but I turned up every day and I was kind to my friends. That's really important.
The subject of neurodiversity was going through my head when you were talking then, because there's a friend of mine whose son has got ADHD and autism, and school just were totally ill-equipped to deal with it. And they thought he was being naughty. They thought he was being, lazy. They spotted flashes of brilliance and they attached that to, well, if you can be brilliant, then why can't you be brilliant all the time? You must be showing laziness then. It wasn't. It was a total misunderstanding. And as a result, she moved in from that school to another one that showed more understanding. And I do think, we are still some way for the education system to actually catch up with what's needed in our changing world. There is a lot of kids that are suffering from ADHD and autism. It's real.
Yeah.
It's not imaginary. It's there. And other neurodiverse challenges that kids face, dyslexia, dyspraxia, and all of these things, they're all real, but we must know what they are, and education system and employers need to do something about it. What's your take on ideas like, and you come across this expression, gross national happiness, which was formulated in Bhutan, which has an amazing record for its population being happy, because they focused more on the genuine happiness of their population rather than gross domestic product, which is what we tend to focus on in the so-called civilized world. So what's your take on gross national happiness? Do you think that's something that could ever work in a country like the UK?
Oh, it could work, but there'd have to be the political will for it, and there's no political will for something that you can't measure in pounds, shillings and pence and votes. So I don't think it'll ever happen. It's a great shame that it will never happen. You'd have to find a way of measuring it. I think that's a complex notion to measure happiness and contentment, because it isn't about what you have, but it's about your attitude to what you have. It's not your attitude about where you are in your life, what street you live on, what car you drive, but it's much more about your attitude towards your neighbours, yourself, your health, your happiness, and the world. So I think it'd be a complex thing to measure. It's a great shame that we don't measure it. It would be fascinating to see what would come of that, and then what steps governments would take to increase it. God knows what they'd do.
If you had a message for today's technology creators, especially those shaping the digital world that we've talked about, that our children and grandchildren will inherit, what message would that be?
To start being responsible for the things that you create, and start being more proactive about making connections between communities and not driving a wedge between communities, and start owning the responsibility for what you have created and the responsibility you have to society.
Inclusion, not separation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here. Okay. Moving on to the last section now. You've known profound love, loss and reinvention. What sustained you through life's most difficult chapters?
I'm very juvenile. So what really sustains me is the wonder that I'm still here, the joy to be still here, the love of my children and brothers and sisters, and the desire to make a difference. I love that.
You've answered some fabulous questions, so there's only one more to ask you now. Is there anything you've never been asked in an interview that you wish someone had?
Ooh, never been asked in an interview. I don't think so. I was asked a question the other day which no one had asked me before, and that was writing, reading a book changes lives. How does writing a book change the author? And I was like, oh, I've never been asked that. And I still don't really know the answer. Apart from the fact in my last book, I think what changed me about writing that book was the realization that there, but for the grace of God, go I. All the things that could have happened to me, I've been so lucky to avoid great tragedy and hardship, and I've had such great luck to be where I am now.
Mandy, Kit, thank you so much. This has been a really, really enjoyable podcast session. I've really enjoyed meeting you. I've really enjoyed hearing your thoughts and your views. One last favour, will you sign your book for me?
Of course.
Okay. If I give you, hopefully that pen works, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, do you want Kit or do you like?
I don't mind.
Mandy?
I don't mind.
Let's call it Mandy, because then no one else will have Mandy in their book.
Right, thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode of Happiness in Their World with Kit De Waal. We hope you found inspiration and insight from our conversation. To explore more of Kit's work, visit her website on www.kitdewaal.com and follow her journey. Follow Kit on social media for updates on her latest books and projects. Don't forget to join the Global Happiness Crusade for more conversations that matter. Follow us on social media on LinkedIn and Facebook. We'll see you in the next episode of Happiness in Their World.